This is our webinar, Strategies for Developing a Powerful Sales Mindset. We're very excited to be here today. We have a lot of people from all over the, looks like all over the world, the IES, Institute for Excellence in Sales. We do webinars with our thought leaders on a regular basis. Today's a good one. I'm broadcasting from Reston, Virginia. Monica Marusceac, who is going to be our speaker, isn't too far. She's over in McLean, Virginia. But we're going to get a lot of good content over to you today. And this will be just a good use of your time. We're excited that you're here. A couple quick things of interest before we get started with Monica. The next Institute for Excellence in Sales program is this Friday. Features Arnold Sano. If you want to register, there's the URL, bit.ly/sales event WWC. The Institute for Excellence in Sales does programs all over the world. And we're very, very excited to bring great thought leaders. This program is going to be in Northern Virginia. So it's going to be this Friday morning, the Westwood Country Club in Vienna, Virginia. If you haven't registered yet, please be sure to do so. The next program in February features Mark Jankowski. The topic is Sales, Negotiation, Mastery. And we're very, very excited to bring Mark to the Northern Virginia region as well. Just a couple of quick things about today's webinar. We're going to be going to about 45, 50 minutes after the hour. We'll talk about questions in a second. The genesis of this webinar came from a blog that I wrote last week that was posted after an interview with Monica. It's called Call Me Moose, What a Marine Pilot Knows About Sales Mindset. I was very excited to see that this blog post got shared by close to 3,000 people. It was spread all around, got a lot of great interest. The topic of mindset is one that comes up all the time at Institute for Excellence in Sales programs. So we're very, very excited to talk about this. As we like to do on webinars, we're going to do a little poll here, very simple poll. It's how would you assess your sales mindset? So take a second to vote here. Would you say it's perfect? Nothing can stop you? Generally pretty strong, but you're often stopped. You're halfway there, or you need work. So again, take a second just to test out the webinar skills here. How would you assess your sales mindset? Perfect, nothing can stop you. You're generally strong, but you're often stopped. Halfway there, you know you could do better, and you definitely need work. Again, invariably, sales mindset is one of the topics that frequently comes up from the great speakers that we bring all around the world. So I'm just looking at the polls here. About 70% of the people are saying they're generally strong, but I'm often stopped. And about 30% say they're halfway there, but need work. Interestingly, Monica, we'll talk about this in a second, nobody has selected perfect. Nothing can stop me. So that'll give us some good topics to talk about. If you have a question on today's webinar, feel free to ask questions as they come up to you. There's the question control panel. Just type in your questions. We'll get to them throughout today's session. Permit Monica to defer answering questions, which may require a particularly lengthy answer until the end of the call. Again, we'll be going to about 50 minutes past the hour. And if something doesn't make sense, or if Monica glossed over something too quickly, again, please submit a comment or a question on the panel, the question panel, so that we can get to you. I'm very, very excited to have Monica Marusceac on the call today. I've known her for a number of years now. Her company, Peak Performance, does amazing work with sales teams, management teams, corporations to help them exceed their expectations and grow their business. She's a master NLP practitioner. She's a board-certified hypnotist. She's also a commercial pilot, but if you read the blog, you'll see that she's also a Marine pilot. And we're going to talk today about some of the mindset techniques and thoughts that she's been able to enable from that experience as being a major in the Marine Reserves. So I'm very, very excited at this time to turn it over to Monica. And Monica, I'm going to hand you the slides right now. Monica, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Fred. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing good. You had me nervous there for a second, but I'm thrilled that you're on the call. We have sales professionals from all over the world on today's call. They're all paying attention. They're all excited with what you have to tell us.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm excited to be here. I just needed a moment to unmute myself, and now I'm ready to go. So with that, let's talk about the mindset of success. And the bottom line is that whatever we do in life, whether we're flying airplanes or helping people with overcome their problems, it's all about mindset. As you showed in your poll, Fred, nobody is perfect. And no matter what we're doing, whether we're working for someone else in sales or we're working for ourselves, growing our business, we're always selling something, so to speak. We're always selling an idea, selling ourselves, or sometimes the most important thing is to sell ourselves on the fact that what we offer is of value and what we do is important and that what we're doing is helping people. So when I work with companies, with one-on-one clients as well, it's all about helping people to reset their mindset about sales and about the value that they bring into the world. Because as far as I'm concerned, selling is not about pushing people to buy things they don't need. It's about helping people solve problems. And because I come at it from that perspective, I've been able to help others reset their mindset about what they do and become unstoppable themselves. And from what I've learned, you know, there are a number of fears that stop sales professionals. Fears, a negative first impression, for example, you know, with that old adage of not wanting to be too pushy and whatnot. The big fear of no, the big fear of rejection, of course. And what I've found is that no matter how much we know intellectually that rejection is, you know, just brings us one step closer to a yes, in our heart of hearts, nobody likes to hear that no, nobody likes to feel rejected. So what I do, is I give people tools to help them implement the strategies that are all over the internet. So I'm really a person, I'm not here to share anything particularly new in terms of techniques, tactics, or strategies as far as getting over fears. I'm really here to help people implement those strategies and those tactics and those techniques so that every time they walk into a room, every time they meet with a client or a prospect, they are ready to go, and in their mind they've already succeeded, and they're not questioning themselves, they're not doubting themselves. They know 100% that what they offer is of value, and they don't know it in their head, they know it in their heart, they know it in their body, they know it in their soul. And because they know it so profoundly, the yeses come more quickly, the yeses come more naturally, and success builds upon success, and then these people become unstoppable. But before I move on, I need to mention something, because a lot of people think that I've been, you know, I'm generally a confident person, and a lot of people who know me now think that I've always been this way. And that's in fact not true. I started off a very, very different person, but it was a moment of decision in my past that brought me to the place I am today. And right after college, I decided to join the Marine Corps, something that nobody in a million years would have guessed that I was going to do. But that decision to join the Marine Corps changed my life forever. So let me just say that I was not always moose, so to speak. I was quite bouncy, actually. I grew up in New York City. I was an immigrant from Romania. I had no prior military in my background. I had no flying experience in my background. I was kind of a nerd, actually, a little chubby, a little shy, not very well liked at all growing up. And in fact, I was bullied extensively for many, many years in elementary school. So you could say that there were no indications to any outside observer that I would become a Marine pilot, let alone a Marine jet pilot. But what happened is I decided that I wasn't going to allow my life to be dictated by the beliefs and the fears of others. So after college, I decided to join the Marine Corps, go on an adventure, and explore what lay outside my comfort zone. And so I made a conscious decision to face my fear and go out there and do something I never in a million years thought I could do. I never thought I could fly. I never thought, in fact, a lot of people told me that women don't fly jets. Women don't fly combat airplanes. The people who were telling me this were other Marines, actually, at the time. And so I had to overcome their negative talk. I had to overcome the limiting beliefs that were, beginning to form in my own mind as a 22-year-old woman thinking of joining what might just be the biggest boys club in the entire world. And I just kept going. I just kept facing my fear every single day. The more fear, the better, was what I kept telling myself. And eventually, through years of repetition, I went from being mousy to being moose. And this person, Moose, is a very different person from the person that is, the mother to my child and the wife to my husband and the, confidant to my friends. But this Moose is the one who can overcome any challenge, can figure out any problem, can be anyone she needs to be at any given time in order to achieve her desired outcome. And what I'd like to share with you all is my strategy for getting into this moose mindset, if you will. And the strategy is a three-part strategy. It's a combination of specific things I do or did when I was flying, and now I have different rituals that allow me to accomplish different goals as a civilian business owner, and a special technique called visualization, which I'm sure is pretty self-explanatory to most of the listeners out there. And that combination of actual activity combined with powerful visualization gives me the ability to compartmentalize very effectively, so that at any given moment I'm only thinking about that thought, that activity, that person that I need to be focusing on in order to accomplish my outcome. So if I'm on stage speaking, I'm only thinking about the people in front of me. If I'm in a room with a client, I'm only thinking about that person and the client. I'm not thinking about myself. I'm not thinking about my fears. I'm not thinking about my family. I'm thinking about only those things which I need to be focused on to be successful. And I'm willing to bet that for those audience members who clicked, I'm generally good, but sometimes I'm stopped, those moments when the person is stopped are those moments when they tend to focus on themselves in some capacity. They tend to focus on their, a limiting belief somewhere in the back of their mind, a voice of doubt, something to that effect. And generally what I've found among my one-on-one clients and in groups is that when we focus on ourselves, when we focus on our limiting beliefs or the voices in our head, we tend to slip into self-doubt, and that inevitably leads to failure. But as long as we focus on the other person, nothing can stop us. And so we'll talk about that there at the end, compartmentalization. But first, let's talk about rituals. Rituals are activities that we do on a regular basis, activities that are a part of our lives, whether or not we notice them, that reinforce certain behaviors, that reinforce certain beliefs, and that lead to certain attributes in ourselves. Whether or not we realize it, we all have rituals. The question is, are our rituals reinforcing our desired outcomes, or are those rituals hindering them? So a simple example might be, people who work out regularly. That's an example of a ritual. And another word for ritual is routine, habit, things like that. But our rituals define us. Our rituals are the outward manifestation of our standards. So whatever standards we have for ourselves, that is going to be expressed through our daily rituals. And whatever we do is going to give us the results that we get. So as everyone on the call begins to think about their rituals, what do they do on a daily basis to contribute to their success, or what they do on a daily basis that might contribute to some opportunities for growth. If we keep doing what we've always done, we'll just continue to get what we've always gotten. So it's important to remain flexible and to identify areas that we can find room for improvement. And as a pilot, rituals became very automatic for me very quickly, because pilots live on checklists. We have pre-flight checklists, pre-brief checklists, in-flight checklists, landing checklists, so on and so forth. And I personally am not a very consistent person in my nature, but this training, this military pilot training, allowed me the opportunity to develop that skill of creating habits, routines, and rituals through the use of checklists. And perhaps to some of the audience members, the idea of creating a checklist before a client interaction might seem boring or a waste of time. However, I promise that a simple checklist of maybe even just 3 things, something as simple as a 3-item checklist, can magically alter the sense of preparation and the sense of confidence when entering a room. For example, for myself, I have workplace rituals now that I put in place before each session, things I do after each session, and I even have a daily priming ritual that puts my mind in a very focused, very optimistic, very outcome-oriented paradigm. Every morning I do that before the beginning of the day. In those pictures there to the right, what you're seeing is myself preparing for a flight. This was on a small aircraft carrier called an LHD. This was on the USS Boxer, and this was in 2009. It was my last deployment before I left what we call the operating forces in the Marine Corps. This was a ship of about 3,000 people, a combination of Navy and Marine Corps service members, and all the pilots, all the Marines themselves, the soldiers were Marines, and then the ship's crew were Navy. And what we were doing is counter-piracy operations. So if anybody remembers that movie with Tom Hanks about the pirate attack on the Marusceac, Alabama, Captain Phillips, this was our deployment. That's what we were doing. We were conducting counter-piracy operations, and obviously that gained a lot of media attention, and so we had the media on the ship, and part of the media's interest was to interview some of the pilots on board. So there I am. I'm getting ready for a flight. I'm putting on my flight gear. I do everything the same way each time. Every position, every stance, every hand gesture is the same. Now, this might be extreme, obviously, because, I wear the same equipment every time. You, as a sales professional, is not going to be in that same position. But there is something to be taken away from the idea of having a routine that is so ingrained, whether it's something you say or something you do or something you carry with you, that allows you to access a deep level of confidence or a deep level of self-assurance that gives you the ability to connect with your prospect or your client very powerfully. And I know that with a little bit of thought, anybody on the call can think of something, a couple of activities perhaps, that they could identify and create into a habit, into a routine that would allow them to really access a powerful level of self-assurance in order to connect and to make the best impression possible on the client or the prospect. In fact, Harvard Business Review wrote in 2013 that rituals help us to create focus and a sense of belonging and help us to make change stick. So that's one of the key takeaways, is that if we invest the time in identifying supportive rituals, the likelihood that any change we implement, whether it's a professional change or a personal change, will actually stick and will actually stay the course. In fact, research demonstrates that the power of rituals can go even further. They can increase our perception of value, our own perception of value in ourselves, or the perception of others in our value that we're offering them. So take a moment, a couple of seconds perhaps, and identify one or two rituals. I'll offer you a couple of suggestions. Something that I do in my workplace before I get on a call, because I do have to make some sales calls myself, I call it business development, if that's okay, is I will go ahead and read all the testimonials on my website. I'll read the testimonials on Yelp, I'll read the testimonials in Google, and I will read, you know, all these kind things that people have said to me, so that when I get on the call with a potential client, I know without a shadow of a doubt that what I do offers value and support to people. And that simple ritual of maybe, you know, I don't even think I read every testimonial in full. I just kind of glance over it and I say, oh yeah, I remember that client. That was amazing. Oh, I remember that class. That was great. Gives me that level of self-assurance that allows me to walk into a room or get on the phone with confidence and a level of relaxation that permeates the call and puts the other person at ease. So perhaps that's something that you could do. Read your own testimonials or review your product information so that you know without a shadow of a doubt that what you're offering is incredibly valuable. And obviously, you can think of many more than just that.
Hey, Monica, this is Fred. So that's great. So I have a couple of quick questions for you. And by the way, for anyone on the call, if you have any questions throughout the webinar today, just go to the question section on the control panel. A couple of quick questions, Monica, to give the people on the call a little more perspective about you and your background. How long did it take you from the day you started with the Marines to when you were flying when you were flying a jet on your own?
Well, so from day one was October 2001, and I got into my first aircraft on November 2002. It wasn't a jet airplane, but it was still a turboprop aircraft, more powerful than pilots fly in the civilian world without a type rating. So just about a year.
And another question is, you said that, you know, when you're a pilot, you're Moose. You're no longer Monica. Does Monica ever slip in when you're flying the plane? Do you ever all of a sudden notice that you're Monica again? And if you do, what do you do to quickly get back to being Moose? Or have you trained yourself and have the Marines train you so that you're always Moose when you're up in the plane?
Right. So early on, Monica would slip in. That's absolutely a truth. What I would do is I have a certain hand gesture and a certain arm motion that I would implement in those moments to kind of shake myself out of it, if you will, to kind of snap back into it, snap back into character. That hand gesture and arm motion has evolved over time, but it gives me like the ability to just go right back into character without missing a beat. The important thing is to realize when that happens, and obviously I've gotten better at it with time.
All right, last question here that came from one of our attendees is, how often do you review your rituals? So I guess the question is, do you formally sit down once a week, once a month, once a year, and list the rituals, or are those things that just have inherently become part of your process? Have you made a process of determining your rituals?
That is a great question. As a person, I operate rather intuitively, in the sense that I will get a feeling, get a sense that something's not right in my life, or something's not right in my business, or something's not right in my mindset. And what will usually happen when I get that feeling, when I get that vibe, is I'll take a breather and I'll start asking myself questions. I'll say, what's wrong? I'll literally, maybe not out loud, but I'll talk to myself and I'll say, what's wrong? Why am I feeling this way? What do I need to do? And then I'll begin to jot down a list of areas of discomfort, areas where I don't feel 100% confident, areas of improvement that I think need to be addressed. And from there, usually I'll identify one or two key areas where I can make a small shift, what is often called a 2-millimeter shift. And by making that small 2-millimeter shift, I can have dramatically improved results. And that 2 millimeters may be adding a step to a ritual, taking a step away. But I can't say that I have a regular pattern where, periodically I reevaluate my rituals. I find that when things are working, they work, and when they don't, I listen to my gut and I make whatever changes need to happen.
Excellent. So let's move to the next stage. Again, if you have any questions, I know a couple of them are coming through the panel. We'll get to them throughout the course of today's webinar. Let's talk about visualization.
Absolutely. Visualization is one of the most powerful components of success. The reason is that the mind does not know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So they've done studies. For example, one study that immediately pops to mind is of a group of basketball players. And they had this group of basketball players broken out into 3 groups. One group practiced shooting free throws every day for 30 days. The next group lay down on the basketball court, did not practice, but imagined, visualized themselves practicing for 30 days, for the same amount of time. And then the third group was the control group. They didn't practice at all. They didn't visualize at all. They just went about their day. And what they found is that obviously the group that practiced improved the most. I regret to say that I don't remember the exact percentage improvement. They did improve the most. But what was the most surprising was the group that just laid down on the basketball court and visualized themselves throwing hoops, shooting hoops, actually improved almost as much. I think it was something like 35% improvement in the group that practiced and like 27% improvement in the group that just visualized themselves practicing. And obviously the group that didn't practice at all or visualize didn't improve in any way. So the more vividly that you as a sales professional or just you as a person can imagine and connect with your goal, the better your chance of making it a reality. And when I say vividly, I mean through your own eyes. I mean like first person, incredibly associated into the experience. So we can imagine things in 2 ways. We can visualize things in 2 ways. We can see them through our own eyes, vividly as though we were there in that moment, or we can visualize things in a disassociated way, kind of like third person, looking from the outside looking in. The most powerful way to connect with an experience is to visualize it firsthand. And by doing that, it allows you to really believe, the mind to really believe and connect with the possibility of success. Because if you can't picture yourself achieving a goal, the chances are really, really high that you won't achieve it. Your subconscious mind will say, oh, this is just not possible. It won't work out. I'm doomed. And a lot of us have a tendency to perhaps overplan. We will try to plan for every contingency, for every obstacle, for every possible no. And by focusing so much on the no, on the possibility of no, we end up making it a reality without even intending to. Whereas what I teach my clients is the art of visualization. Not just visualization, but of their intended outcome. Because if in your mind you've achieved it, if in your mind you visualized it, you've already achieved it. And if you've achieved it once, the chances are you'll achieve it again, this time in real life. And this all came from my time, again, as a pilot, where I would spend hours chair flying. Now, obviously, I spent more time chair flying as a young pilot, and as a more mature pilot, I was able to draw from my experiences as a young pilot and, quickly visualize moments of success or quickly visualize myself landing on the ship, that sort of thing. And so the process became more efficient. But I never took off without first imagining in my mind's eye that I was on the runway, that I was taking off. In fact, as pilots, we always have what is called a brief, a flight brief. And in that flight brief, we will break down and cover every single component of the flight. And obviously, the more mature pilots cover each component of the flight more efficiently and more quickly than someone who's brand new, but we still touch on it. We still connect with it, if you will. We associate into the experience. We see ourselves on the runway through our own eyes. And that allows us to be extra prepared for any contingency, even though what we're focusing on is the desired outcome. The other thing that I found incredibly helpful in visualization is to incorporate physical movement. And what I mean by that is walking around or standing up or taking a stance that helps me to connect with a certain sense of confidence. I'm sure you've all heard of the TED Talk about power stances. That is incredibly powerful and incredibly effective when combined with visualization. Assuming a power stance that promotes the release of testosterone and adrenaline is incredibly effective at helping this visualization anchor itself into your person, into your soul, so that when you do walk into the room and connect with the client for the first time, you're doing it in the most authentic way possible because you've already done it. And it's that act of repeatedly seeing yourself connect with your client, connect with your prospect, close the deal, that tells your brain, I can do this, I've done this, I can do it, I've done it. And that repetition is the mother of skill, and that's what everybody here, I'm sure on the call, is here to learn, is how can I take all of this strategy and all of this advice that's on the internet or that's on in all these seminars, and how can I incorporate it into my very soul, into the person that I am, so that when I connect with someone, I'm doing it authentically. And so in this picture here, I just want to give you a quick little background. This was my first air show demonstration. And I had never done an air show before. In fact, it was a very difficult period of time in my life where, as pilots, we weren't flying very much. And so I had only had 3 hours of flight time in the last month. And I don't know if that sounds like a lot or little to the audience members, but it's very little for flying such a difficult airplane. The Harrier is it's a very challenging airplane to fly. It is not fly-by-wire. It does not have a computer that can mitigate erroneous control inputs by the pilot. It's all the pilot. And when we don't have a lot of proficiency in what we're doing, bad things can happen. In fact, the Harrier has a three times the accident rate of other aircraft in the Marine Corps and Navy inventories. So what we did instead, since we couldn't fly that much, is we would chair fly. We would visualize the flight, and here I am about to do an air show when I had never done one before. So you can you can bet that I was visualizing a lot, making sure that every move had been captured in my mind's eye before I got into that cockpit. And even as I had suited up and was getting into the cockpit, I was looking at the airplane, I was looking at the crowd, I was looking at the airfield, and I was having brief little flashes of moments when I knew I would need to be extra focused or be extra cautious, so on and so forth. So take a moment, again, maybe just a few seconds, and just think of three moments, 3 periods in your sales process where you can begin to visualize your success. Maybe it's the close, maybe it's the greeting, maybe it's focusing on that first impression. Maybe it's the transition from small talk and casual conversation to moving into more of the bona fide sales process. But jot down a couple of ideas for how you can start visualizing your success in your career field. And then you can expand upon it after the call. But with repetition comes skill. And so it's that combination. Yes, go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Keep
Oh,
going.
it's okay. No, go ahead.
All right. So we're starting to get a couple of great questions here, and that's actually quite interesting, the story there. So here comes the question. How do I keep my nerves from creeping in when a sale is going badly?
Okay. That's a great question. Perfect. So I can empathize with the person asking that question because there have been numerous moments in my life where my nerves were creeping in because of like an emergency that was going on in the cockpit where I was over the ocean, over a blue water ocean with nowhere to land but the ship. And the prospect of ejecting into the ocean was not appealing to me at all, and the only thing I wanted was to get back to the boat. But things were going really badly, just like you said. And what I did in those moments is I would visualize myself at the end. I would visualize myself not at the end of that flight, but at the end of a different flight where I had landed successfully. At the end of a different mission where I was safe on deck and I was had an amazing landing and felt really good. So for the person asking the question, I would suggest identifying in advance 1, 2, or maybe 3 moments of very powerful moments of success. When a deal was maybe questionable, but in the end it was closed favorably. And that person connecting with those moments of success very vividly, making them very bright, making them very powerful, really identifying the feelings of success. Where in the body, where in the physical body is that person feeling the success? Because success, you know, pride, for example, it usually lives in the chest. Or a sense of positive anticipation might exist in the hands or the shoulders, something like that. Different people feel emotion in different ways. So that person, when they imagine themselves in the moment where they were successful, where they've overcome an obstacle, and they connect with those feelings, having those moments at easily accessible, and then focusing on them for a brief instance, should allay the fear that's beginning to creep up, should calm the nerves that are beginning to get frazzled in that moment, in that circumstance where the sale might not be going so well. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that is great. Now we have about 10 minutes remaining here. Why don't we bring it home now? Let's talk about how we tie in ritual and visualization with the third element, compartmentalization. And I just want to remind people that question and the last couple of questions came from people on the webinar. We have a lot of people on the webinar. If you have a question, type it in. We're going to be going for about another 7 to 10 minutes, and we'll definitely get to your question. So Monica, bring it on home now with how you tie in ritual visualization and compartmentalization.
Well, yeah, so compartmentalization is the pilot's word for mindfulness. So we've all heard of the term mindfulness, and you know, it sounds maybe a little bit abstract, But compartmentalization is the ability to separate limiting beliefs from the task at hand, and it's an incredibly important skill that pilots have. And the bottom line is that pilots use the concept of pain and pleasure as leverage to really focus their mind in moments of stress on the task at hand. And obviously for us, maybe it's a little easier because for us, you know, if we don't compartmentalize, we die, right? If we don't compartmentalize and we focus on what could go wrong, well, you know, things could go really wrong and then we could crash the airplane. So we're very motivated to focus on the task at hand. The problem that I've found with my clients, obviously, who are not pilots, they work, you know, sales jobs or other performance-based jobs, is that the pressure is not enough. The leverage is not enough to focus, really focus on the task at hand. And so they tend to focus on conflicting internal views simultaneously. And when we focus on conflicting internal views simultaneously, we become unfocused, and by compartmentalizing or being mindful, we can step into a different mindset. We can actually, I call it activating your inner superhero. You use your rituals to leverage a feeling of confidence, and you visualize your success, and together those rituals and that visualization gives you the ability to step into that different mindset. And so I break it down into three components here. Visualize, associate into that experience of success, and then execute the task at hand. That execution portion, that is the product, that successful execution is the product of compartmentalization. And I get to compartmentalization through asking myself quality questions. How do I feel right now? What's causing me to feel this way? Identifying what those limiting beliefs might be. Okay, got it. Now, what do I need to think? What do I need to believe? What do I need to do to achieve in order to achieve in this moment? So is the way I'm feeling right now helping me or hurting me? And how do I need to shift in order to achieve my desired outcome? And then I associate into a moment when I felt that way before. So in this scene here, I'm having actually a very bad day. As pilots, we're constantly being evaluated, we're constantly being judged, we're constantly being screened. And in this instance where you see me sitting there kind of somber, we were doing carrier qualifications and I was not having a good day. You could say I was getting a lot of no's, that's for sure. So I was sitting there getting gas, getting fueled, and I was asking myself these questions. How do I feel right now? What's causing me to feel this way? But what do I really want to achieve in this moment? I want to achieve a safe landing, a safe takeoff, a safe landing. So how do I need to feel in order to achieve that safe takeoff and that safe landing? I got myself into the right mindset by visualizing myself taking off from the edge of the ship, by visualizing myself landing successfully. I associated into moments when I had successfully taken off and landed from the ship. I closed my canopy. I followed the hand and arm movements of that little man in yellow. And then I put my throttle in the corner and I took off down that short little runway on that ship. Now, if any of you know anything about carriers, most traditional carriers have what's called a cat shot, which is a big metal arm that throws the airplane off the edge of the ship. In our case, with the Harrier, we actually are in control of our own airplane as it goes off the edge of the ship. So the pilot has, their mind has to be in the right place at the right time, or else they won't execute the takeoff safely and they'll go into the water instead of off the front of the ship. So this is one of the most important moments for a pilot to be compartmentalized and focused on the task at hand. And it all happens by having set rituals, hand movements, where the eyes are looking, checklists, and so on. visualizing that takeoff, visualizing that landing, associating into those experiences very powerfully, and then focusing and executing and coming back safely and successfully. And all of these same techniques can be utilized by any person in any profession, whether sales or marketing or even parents. And I think that the idea of compartmentalization might resonate a little bit more with people than mindfulness, because it is a product of two very tangible, actionable steps rather than perhaps a more abstract concept like mindfulness. So that was a bit of a quick review of compartmentalization, Fred. But I know that we need to keep on time, so I wanted to give people the opportunity to ask more questions if they need to.
Yeah, let's move to the next slide, and then we'll have a couple questions here that are coming through. Again, if there's any questions, bring them in. Let's see. We got a couple of good ones here. Let's see. Monica, talk about coaching for a second. So we have a nice mix between some people on the call who are highly successful salespeople and people who are relatively new in the profession of sales. So talk about the role of coaching and how that would help you stay in the proper mindset. Because as I'm thinking about all the things that you need to be control of when you're a pilot, there's a lot of things you need to know. The same thing with sales. You know, you have a lot of accounts you're managing, you have things you need to do. Talk a little bit about the role of coaching. And why don't you move to the last slide so that people can see some upcoming programs as well.
Absolutely. So as far as coaching goes, there are different methods of coaching. My preferred method is to focus on the mindset, obviously. I firmly believe that strategy is everywhere, that almost any strategy can work for almost any person, provided that they have the right mindset. And so the focus of coaching, in my opinion, should be on helping people to gain emotional and mental mastery. In other words, gaining mastery over their thoughts, their beliefs, and their behaviors. And that's where we focus all of our energy, is on helping people to master their beliefs, their thoughts, and their behaviors. And though that mastery will then lead to the ability to implement rituals and to visualize on a consistent basis and create that compartmentalization inside of people. Because the bottom line is that the person who is doing the work at the office, the person who's doing the selling in the field, that person, that part of ourselves, should not be the same person that's coming home to their wife or husband or to their children. We each need to cultivate the ability to operate in very efficiently, leveraging the different strengths that we have in the different parts of ourselves. So for example, a person who is in sales needs to cultivate that sales person. Give that person a name. In fact, I do that for all my coaching clients, is I encourage them to give their sales professional a different name than their own name. You know, like I have a call sign, for example. That's one technique that I use in my coaching.
That's very good. So you see a couple upcoming programs. Again, this Friday is the January IES program featuring Arnold Sanel. The topic is Getting Along Better with Sales Prospects Anytime, Anywhere. And Peak Performance, Monica's company, Peak Performance Associates, will be doing a mindset training on March 30th. We have time for 2 more questions. As I ask you this question, Monica, I'm going to launch our final poll. So if you're on the call, feel free to answer the poll question. Here's the question. But this is so the poll question is, how comfortable are you in implementing today's content? I've already started over the course of this call. I'm good for now. I could benefit from more information. I need Monica's help. We actually will be touching on mindset throughout the year at the IES. But here's a question. Many successful sales leaders and sales professionals have some level of ADHD that actually contributes to their success. They are highly creative The idea is to harness those benefits to manage the lack of focus. What is the role of tools and support in this regard? Any ideas on that?
I'm sorry, Fred, you broke up a little bit on my end. Can you ask the question again, please?
Sure. So a lot of successful salespeople have ADHD that actually helps them, and it helps them be creative. So the idea is to harness the benefits of the HDAD and to manage the lack of focus. What do you think are some of the roles of tools or support in this regard? So I guess if someone is a high-performing sales professional and they have ADHD and they can't totally focus, what may be some of the techniques that can help them focus?
Absolutely. So I think rituals really can benefit people with ADHD in the sense that it allows them to break things up into smaller chunks so that they can allow their mind to jump and to connect with various sources of inspiration without worrying that they'll lose their place or that they'll lose their momentum. I know that momentum is very important for a lot of professionals involved in high performance activities, and the prospects of losing that momentum might prove daunting. But with a ritual, a person can easily come back to where they need to be, and they can organize their activities in chunks rather than in a linear fashion. And I think that the linear may serve some people well, but a linear approach is not the best for someone with ADHD. So identifying rituals may be more important than ever to someone with ADHD.
Excellent. Well, we've been spending the last hour with Fred Diamond from the IES with Monica Marusceac with Peak Performance Associates. I encourage everybody on the call to go to the i4esbd.org website and read the blog that I posted last week. There was an interview with Monica and talking about some of the things we just talked about. Monica, thank you so much for being on today's webinar. Thanks to all the people from, thank you. Great job. Thanks to all the people around the world who were on today's call. And we say thank you very much.